Thank you, Chairman. The government overshot the number of vaccines needed in 2022 by over 100 doses. What were the challenges of estimating the number of doses needed for 2023, and how does that impact your cost?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. That's one of the very complex issue with this transition from the pandemic to endemic. I have never managed a company going from pandemic to endemic, and it has not happened since, of course, the pandemic flu of 1918. And so we are trying to guess how much volume is needed, which is the manufacturing challenge we have, especially as a small company. We do not do the filling in the vials ourselves. We have to contract that to outside companies. And what we're trying to do is to not undershoot it because, as I said earlier, we care deeply about having enough product available for patients when somebody walks into a pharmacy. And so we know by design we're going to have to overmake products and we're going to have to take the returns and destroy them at the end of the season. But that's part of the cost of running a seasonal respiratory vaccine franchise, which is why it's necessary for us to increase the cost versus the discount that we had during the pandemic, where the government took all the risk, managed the waste.
But buying the unused doses, you have to factor that back into the cost because you have to repurchase them and then dispose of them correctly. Is that correct?
So we have to do two things, Senator. You're correct. One is we have to make more than we need to make sure there's available all across the country when needed. So if you think about just the supply chain and distribution, you need much more to make sure you have everywhere at any time. And then there's the returns, which is if a pharmacy gets more than they thought they needed, they will return it to us, and then we have to, of course, incur that cost, obviously.
What will need to change within your company to accommodate the demand for single vial versus pre-filled syringes rather than 10-dose vials that were purchased by the federal government?
So we have to move to single-dose vial because that's what the pharmacists and the doctors want. Okay. And we understand that. That's the commercial market needs because it's simpler, there's less wastage. Somebody walks in.
But you have to factor that into the cost too?
Exactly.
Is it cheaper to do 10 at a time versus 1 at a time?
It's much more expensive to do 10 because just if you look at the cost of a glass vial, you need 10 vials versus 1.
Right.
And then you use a lot of capacity in the...
I'm talking about per dose, though.
Yeah. And then you use a lot of capacity at the manufacturer. So right. While the number of doses go down, the number of vials go up.
Right. Pfizer is also noted that they're going to intend to increase the price of their vaccine to $130 per dose. How does the market competition factor into changing cost?
So we look at value and price. And of course, like in any market, we want to be competitive as an enterprise. And so we look at that as well. But the key driver, as I was sharing with the Senator a minute ago, is really value, which is what's the value of a vaccine in terms of healthcare cost? And then how can we create a product to extract some value for the company, but leave some value in the healthcare system? So we want to make sure that there's a lot of value left for Medicare and all the payers.
Your company decided to take government funding as part of the Operation Warp Speed. Can you discuss how Moderna chose to take the loan from HHS and the difference in business structure between you and other manufacturers?
Thank you, Senator. So we decided to take the loan from BARDA because it will accelerate the vaccine development. If you go back in time, those discussions were happening in end of January, February, March, until April grant. And what at the company we wanted to ensure is the vaccine going to clinical trial as fast as possible. At the time, Moderna was losing money. And so if we had developed the vaccine without government funding, the development would have been much slower because we would not have been able to take some of the financial risk that we took thanks to the government money, like making product ahead of a study. And so that's why we decided to take the money because we thought it was going to save lives.
Thank you. That I yield back.
Mr. Bancel, I'm sorry. No, let me go and then I'll get it to you.
I haven't asked yet. It'll be your second round.
I'm sorry, Senator Cassidy.
Yeah.